How's it going in his house, everybody? It's the party here, and we talk about shit. That's really about it. And right now, I feel like kind of talking about some Ultimate Spider-Man. I mean, like, I'm not sure if anyone really knows about Ultimate Spider-Man, but I kind of feel like talking about it. It's a very underrated game that came out way back then. It was like, what, 2005 actually. It came out on GameCube and like some other like handheld consoles. Like, it came out on Nintendo DS. Came out, I'm pretty sure, on the Game Boy Advance. It was quite a popular game when it came out, but not a lot of people know about it these days. But it was a really good Spider-Man game, so I feel like kind of talking about it. And I really think that we should have got a second one. I could kind of understand why we didn't, but I feel like that we should have got, or should get, something related to Ultimate Spider-Man, which we'll get into right now. So, Ultimate Spider-Man. What is Ultimate Spider-Man? Ultimate Spider-Man? If you don't know Ultimate Spider-Man, like, you gotta search that shit up. It's basically, it comes off, I'm talking about the game, of course. It comes off the actual comic book series of Ultimate Spider-Man. And basically that is like another kind of universe of, like, you know, one of those like, not 616, but some other, I don't know the actual number, but it's called the Ultimate Universe. Where the Avengers are actually called the Ultimates. And a lot of the outfits that we have in the MCU are kind of based off the Ultimates outfits. For the Avengers, that is. So it's a really good series, the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. I love, really good issues. I've read quite a few myself. I think 100 and something. Very good. And this game basically, first I want to kind of talk about, like, a little bit about the story. So, the story is, of course, you know, you play Spider-Man, but one thing that does make it different is, well, besides the art style, it's very comic book like. So a lot of the, you know, transitions and a lot of the cutscenes are very comic book based. Like it kind of has that comic book style, like you're flipping a page, and the way the game also looks is like a comic book. It's very nice. I like it. There's also free roam to it too, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, yeah, so that's kind of what mainly has it, like, what it's got going for it. Because unlike, you know, there's Spider-Man 2 was out around this time, but the reason why it wasn't like Spider-Man 2 is because it actually felt a lot more like the comic, or like a comic, right? And it was based off the comic. But anyway, yeah, so the story basically it recaps from the point of Venom, when Venom was introduced, and when Spider-Man wore the Venom suit. It shows you the very beginning of the game. It's very nice. I like how it kind of shows it really quick, and it kind of has a quick rundown of a few villains. I think it's right after the Venom suit, when Spider-Man gets the Venom suit, and it's mainly, this whole game's around Venom, really. And you actually get to play Venom along with Spider-Man, which also makes it pretty unique, but I'll get into that a little bit more. So yeah, storyline, you know, it basically goes into the Venom storyline, when Peter Parker first fights Venom, and then he ends up disappearing. And then after, it's like a few months later, and this actually takes place in its own kind of like adaptation of what was actually like, what happened. So after that whole part there, that's fully 100% based off the comic, it does its own thing, you know? It adapts to something else. It kind of just does its own thing with Venom and the story. That's not actually, I think they actually used a few elements from the game and put it into the comic. I don't know why that actually happened. Maybe it was they talked about something, or I don't know why. But it was really nice to see how, like, you know, the game kind of affected the comics a little bit. But anyway, yeah, so after the comics, the game does its own thing, but still uses a bit of the comic stuff, like, of course, like, the characters and the villains and the story. They used a little bit of that still to kind of, you know, help put pieces together for people who actually read the comics. I say so much, my god. So game takes place after a few months and stuff like that. It also kind of goes into the, I think there was like War of the Symbiotes. There was like an arc in that in the Ultimate Comics, and that kind of comes into play a little bit more with the game. But anyway, yeah, so it's basically like that. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but it's very much, like, I'm going to spoil like a few parts, so unless you load it in advance. But yeah. Like that's basically what it is, right? It's like, it basically dives more into Venom. Venom didn't really have that much purpose in the Ultimate Comics. After like a certain part, they kind of left him alone for a long period of time. So I really like how the game really, you know, actually did something with Venom. It was amazing. But so, for the gameplay, for people who don't know the gameplay, it's very similar to Spider-Man 2. Very similar. you don't actually get to go to a shop. Ah, hit my hand. You don't actually have to go to a shop and shit like that to buy your skills, or like, you know, to some shop, like not some shopkeeper, but some kind of like quest kind of person, you know, to level up with EXP. It doesn't really work like that, right? There's no there's no level systems. You're kind of stuck with the basic stuff. You might every now and then get an upgrade in swing speed or your combo. You can do another consecutive hit in your combo, but that shit doesn't really matter. There's no real purpose, right? I think they should have gave it earlier to us, because I don't see what was the point of kind of giving that to us later, like, you know, as you're progressing, because you don't even fucking notice it happens. It's such a useless upgrade. But that's in my opinion. But yeah, it's very similar to Spider-Man 2. Only real difference is that web swinging is slightly different, because you actually have to, if the second you let go of it, your web swing button, it kind of like drops you immediately. I'm not sure if that was a thing inside Spider-Man 2. I don't think so. I think you have to jump, but like this one you just have to be able, like, you let go of the web swing button, you kind of fall off. Another big thing that changes it is actually the webs himself. So when Spider-Man webs his opponents, he does have a few options that he can do, but when the opponent's on the ground, or the enemy is on the ground, you have to actually web them now, which is a thing that changed, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, because like it's kind of nice and interesting to kind of change it up a little bit, but for me it just feels like you're kind of like going out of your way to make sure you web the target down, because if you don't web the target down, they get right back up, right? But the thing is like, if you don't always get like the lock on to web the certain guy you're trying to web. So then it ends up being like, yo, I was trying to web this guy, and it's like, I got the wrong guy, and now he's right back up. It's like, what the fuck? And there's not really that many things you can do with your web, which really sucks. Because I miss the web impact and shit like that from like Spider-Man 2 to Spider-Man 1. Even the OG 2000 Spider-Man, let's go. And I played that on N64. But you don't actually get that anymore. It's kind of just normal webs. That kind of bothered me. Besides that, you got web zipping. It's very similar. Oh, you can also do some weird stuff. If you're close enough to a wall, you can actually kind of like bounce off the wall like an animation, and it kind of just attacks the guy. And usually what you do is, I think you have to just flick your analog in that direction, wherever you're using to, like, you know, walk around and shit. And then it kind of will just jump off the wall for you. It's nothing that great. It kind of just basically automatically happens in combat. You won't really notice it. It's nice to see, like, you know, kind of flaunt that shit a little bit. You know, get them style points up. But I doubt you're going to get an SSS with that shit. It's not that great. And then now the bigger part of the gameplay is Venom. So Venom is like a completely fucking different character. Like, this man's like a complete tank, like a brute, man. Like, he's pretty yoked. He's a big lad. He doesn't have the, in this game, he doesn't actually have the Venom white symbol. Kind of sucks. But, he does get that later on, of course. He does have... So basically, like, he doesn't have any web swinging, that's one thing. He just, instead of web swinging, he jumps really high. He has the web zip thing still, but it doesn't go as far, and he uses kind of his tentacles to kind of grab something to web zip, but for the web swinging part, all he does instead of that is jump. For combat now, so Spider-Man can kick and punch, but Venom, he kind of has these claws, and you could swing them up close, and they do quite a bit of damage. Or he uses his tentacles to hit you from range. The tentacles are the best weapon for him, even though they don't do much damage, or as much damage. They fucking go far. And those are usually the best option for him in combat. Another thing you have to note is that he actually loses health inside of combat. For some guy, I guess the suit's kind of eating Eddie. And something I never got about the game is when Eddie gets, kind of a spoiler here, when he gets control of the suit at the end of the game, he still loses health. Which that doesn't make any fucking sense to me, but whatever. Anyway. Yeah, so you still, like, you lose health over time, and you have to get it back from, like, eating people or absorbing them into the suit, and that gets your health back. The longer you hold it, the more health you get. If you get normal civilians, it gives you more health, because apparently they have more health than actual trained soldiers and shit like that. But, hey, I didn't make the fucking game. That's how it works. But that's really basically the combat. It's very simple. Oh, Eddie Venom can also grab opponents like Spider-Man, but he can kind of like do some cool stuff, like slam them into the ground or throw them, or even break their back. It took me a while to figure out you can actually break their back if you do like the melee button that you grab, but it's pretty cool. I actually really like that one. But yeah, main thing going for this game is the style. The comic book feel is amazing. Not a lot of games have that these days. Like, you know, there's really just really good graphics where it looks a lot more like, you know, real life and stuff like that. But not a lot of games do the whole comic book feel anymore, especially superhero games. I don't see it as much anymore. I mean, of course, you know, still got here and there, they do it, but like, if you know a game that does it, like, let me know. And I don't mean like an anime. I want to see superhero games. I mean, there's like, what, Dragon Ball Fighters. That looks like straight out of the comic book. Not comic book, the manga. But you don't actually have a lot of superhero games that actually do that anymore. So that's one thing that kind of really bothers me and why I really wanted a sequel. Speaking of sequel, yo, let's talk about the fucking sequel. For a sequel, right? We could have got more into the Spider-Man Venom story. Like, what we got with the game wasn't even like, with the Ultimate Spider-Man game, isn't even fully, you know, it isn't directly the comic, right? It's like, it's adapted off the comic from the Venom saga and the War of the Symbiotes, right? And I think it did a pretty good job. They could have kept going with that, because that wasn't bad. And I doubt they would have made something that horrible. Or instead of Venom and Spider-Man, what we could have got is Spider-Man and Green Goblin. Because the way they used Green Goblin in Ultimate Spider-Man bothered me. The way they kind of just, like, you know, he didn't feel, like, threatening. He was there for one part. So, no, technically 2 parts. Like, one part was, like, I think was Beetle, and then the other part was, like, Spider-Man. And, like, it just didn't, he didn't feel like he did as much as he should have, because he's such a, like, big villain. Like, fucking any Spider-Man universe. That's always amazing. But I just feel like they used him a little bit more, or at least not used him at all. I don't know, it kind of felt like he was misused, in my opinion. And they could have just done something like that, or maybe even just do Spider-Man with a comic book feel. I'm cool with that too. I think I really wish we got a sequel. A lot of people were wondering if we're gonna get a sequel. The game was so short too. But I don't, like, clearly it is like 2020. We're not getting a sequel to that game. It was on GameCube. We're really not. But I do think what we could do instead, possibly, is get a remake or remaster. If a lot of people, like, you know, like, are hyped for it, like, we probably could maybe get it. And remaster is kind of something I don't really want. I think a remaster would be cool. I don't know how that would work. I don't really think that'd be a great idea to get a remaster of it, in my opinion. What I do think, though, is we should get a remake. So right now, like, I'm pretty sure 2018 came out Spider-Man PS4. And a lot of people love that game. This was a Spider-Man that was a lot more experienced. He knew his shit. He knew what he was doing. He's doing this for a while. Apparently, this is also the first time he fought the 66. But anyway, imagine getting kind of the opposite, but more to the comic kind of like style, right? So we get a more inexperienced Spider-Man, right? Who was always distraught about fighting enemies and shit like that. I think that would be cool. I would really love to see a very inexperienced Spider-Man, because I mean, with all the Spider-Mans we got, I mean, we have got a few, I guess, like, Spider-Man starting out, but I want to see Spider-Man honestly struggle when it comes to web swinging and when it comes to fighting enemies and stuff like that. And I think to make it interesting is that they could do the comic book style, but do it right from the beginning of the comic books and stay very truthful to the actual comics. Like right on, like, they could make probably 2 games out of this. They go from, like, the beginning of the comics all the way to, like, War of the Symbiotes or some shit like that. Even do the final one, which is like what Death to Spider-Man in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. I think it would be really, like, I would love to see that. Like, comic book style for, like, you know, how it looks and everything like that. Updated graphics, updated gameplay. They can even do Spider-Man PS4 gameplay. That'd be cool. But the story would be a lot like the comics. I really want a Spider-Man that's just so faithful to the comics. I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man is faithful, but, like, I don't know. Like, I've been itching for this, right? I'm the type of person who watches MCU Spider-Man, and I don't like Far From Home. Maybe you do. I don't like Far From Home. I just don't personally like it because I feel like the direction going Spider-Man isn't the Spider-Man I enjoy. When I heard Ultimate Spider-Man was coming out on TV from, was it Disney or some shit like that? I think it was Disney. Yeah, Disney. I don't fucking remember. I was hyped, and when I saw it, after 3 episodes, I stopped watching it. I got so pissed off. I was like, yo, I expected this to be the ultimate comics Spider-Man. That's what I wanted. I want a Spider-Man that's just, like, directly from the comics, but I can play it or I can watch it. Imagine the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show was directly based off the comics. That would have been amazing, and they could have done that. Of course, I'm not saying that this will happen, or I'm not saying that they 100% should do, like, what I'm asking. I mean, I'm not, like, I can't demand anything in the position I'm in. I can't demand anything at all, right? I'm just saying, you know, in my opinion, I think it would be a great game. If we did get it, I'd be happy. I'd pay a fucking, like, I don't even think I paid that much for my Spider-Man PS4. And I think that's, like, what, $80? I'd pay $120 for the Ultimate Spider-Man game that was, like, directly, like just perfect. Like, from the comics, it was, like, a remake, you know, just starting it from, like, the beginning. That would be amazing to me. I really want that. I'm not sure if you guys want. I'm assuming if people are watching this, they probably agree with me here. But that's what I want to say. Like, I really feel like it should have continued. A lot of people really wanted it. I really wanted it. It could have been great. It didn't continue, but what if we got a remake instead? If you want a remake, yo, leave this a saucy like, you know, because why not, right? Yo, tell me why you would want a remake, or why you don't want a remake, or tell me why you think the MCU is good, because I bet some people fucking watching this think it's good. And you're right to your own opinion, but I disagree hardly. I do not like the MCU Spider-Man, but I would love to see an Ultimate Spider-Man. Alright, thank you for your time. Peace out, stay safe, and I guess don't go on social media as much. You see, like, if you haven't seen some social media stuff, it's fucking crazy. And hopefully, I'm gonna actually try. I'm like, I gotta get better at doing these videos. I'm so bad at my timing. I'm gonna just start doing some other videos that I just kind of like brainstorm and just like pop out of my head. I had to play the whole Ultimate Spider-Man game just for the background content, and it kept having problems with me with like frame rates and shit like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm pushing it. But yeah, take care. Try to stay off social media. Maybe I don't know, watch a movie, I guess. I mean, I watch some good horror movies. I recommend Oculus. It's actually really good. But take care. Peace out. Flip.